Yeah.
I think there's a lot of success if it's something that complements something building wide.
Make the best thing totally ineffective by being grumpy behind it.
There isn't one perfect one,
Yep.
and what works for one person might not work for somebody else. And
Trying to think of a good analogy of, banging your head against the wall or
it is shocking how whispering can be an effective tool in a large gym.
Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because Phi-Ed is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson.
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
And it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey.
Welcome to another edition of Thinking PE. Jamie, this is Thinking PE. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking we've been at this for almost a year, this concept and this vision of Thinking PE.
Yeah, it's crazy. And an amazing year it's been.
The year of 2020, it's been filled with a lot, and it's I guess we're no different.
Yeah, we started this before we had anybody had any idea of what might be coming as far as the shifting of school, way we do school and all that kind of stuff. We were just back in the day trying to create resources for people that wanted them, especially like student teachers and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and that's just it. We both had student teachers. You were right in the middle of having a student teacher and about to switch to another one, and just found that there wasn't much resources out there. There's great resources for games and stuff,
yeah.
But it was that thought process behind great Phi-Ed teachers and the why. And so we started to put together this resource of stop signals.
Yeah,
and how appropriate and how pertinent that becomes, that we later learn that how important it is to have a solid foundation of teaching to build off of, whether it's distance learning or hybrid. That sometimes it's great to revisit some of these resources or some of these best practices.
Yeah, and speaking of revisiting, this whole podcast is now going to be based on, we're going to go back and look and listen to a recording that you and I did, probably, if not one of our first recordings of the idea of putting out a resource, doing a little research on stop signals, finding out what other teachers do, doing it on the web, the World Wide Web. What does that say about stop signals? And we put together an interesting discussion, and I found it fascinating when we went back and listened to it, that it's amazing how many things that I learned from just listening to that. Like you said, revisiting, it's really helping me just to put this podcast together. I'm going to go back to teaching tomorrow with new ideas, even though they are new ideas from you and I.
Yeah, it wasn't just a collection of what the stop signals are,
yeah.
But we go deeper into why some of the stop signals are used. And there isn't one that's any better than the other. And you'll find that it's based on your culture and your school, your teaching your teaching style, just an absolute variety. So from supportrealteachers.org, we identified 5 areas of a good stop signal, and they involve being interactive, clear, equipment free, repetitive, and fun. And we're going to explore that idea of effective stop signals.
Yeah, so let's take a listen to actually us, and we'll break in maybe one time and reflect on some of that stuff. But normally we do podcasts, we're listening to a discussion with somebody else. This one is a discussion between you and I think we're going to find it fairly interesting.
One thing we want to talk about is we get all this excitement going, and we've collected a number of different ways from people we know and people we've talked to, and we get this excitement going on how to bring it to a stop, and things to look for and things to consider as well.
Things to consider, like I've been outside with kindergartners and had my whole lesson just completely disrupted from a piece of lint. That's the type of thing we're trying to consider.
Yeah. Yes. Tell me more about this piece of lint.
Well, I'm sure you've all had your situations if you've taught kindergarten, whether it's PE or anything. I was just outside with them. I got them all lined up in their rows, ready to give them the directions. And then a piece of lint blows by. And unbelievable, one kid saw it, gets up, starts chasing this piece of lint. The next kid watches them. And then the next kid, I'm trying to bring them back. And pretty soon I got 18 kids chasing lint and ready to kind of go, all right, how about we chase lint for today? Or, that would have been a better plan than try to bring them back together. But that's what you were saying is trying to, what do you do? How do you have these management things where, how do you get them back together?
I would share classroom management, give all the kindergartners a basketball. And there's something in Newton's laws of motion that not all those basketballs can be held while you're giving directions. You're trying to get their attention and got some awesome directions or whatever you're trying to, but inevitably one's going to fall. And when one falls, then all of a sudden they all start to fall. And pretty soon we might as well just keep practicing dribbling.
It's unbelievable why you can't get 30 kids to hold a ball. And it's not just kindergarten.
No. So
Yeah.
it's, I guess it takes us right into the topic of stop signals.
Yeah, and so we kind of chatted with some friends of ours, put it out on Twitter a little bit, tried to get some feedback, and tried to find out what are teachers using, what are they doing to make this happen.
And I think the universal one that really came across was music, and how that was kind of the attention getter.
Yeah.
Where they have all this action going and the music stops, and that was the kids' attention to do something. And then it got kind of creative. We found out some awesome things that happen after that music stops.
Yeah, one of the things that I know I learned early on and that other people agree is getting kids to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I had a mentor teacher, that was one of the things he told me in an early lesson was just have them sit. If you can bring them back to a spot, that's what he told me. Bring them back to a spot where they're used to listening from there and then send them back out again. Sometimes that'll save you a lot of time. Other times you don't want them to come all the way back in. You can just have them sit. But if you have them stand, it's going to be tough. It's tough on any kid. And if you use adults too, it doesn't work for them either. So,
and it's bringing them back to one spot. And one of the strategies I read about was you need to stop too. And that if you're
more on that,
if you've got all the kids stopped and you've got their attention and you're kind of moving around, whether you're resetting equipment or something like that, their attention starts to drift. So it's kind of that still body. If you want their attention, you've got to keep that still body as you're presenting.
One of the websites I went to, it was called supportrealteachers.org. They mentioned they had a little video of a teacher that was, when he stops, he would call attention to the students. And this is an elementary, trick, I guess you'd call it, where,
yeah,
boy, sure appreciate John. Or I notice John's ready to go. He's showing me he's already sitting, his stick is on the floor in front of him. And that type of thing. You don't always have to call attention to it being, he's being really good. But you can say, I can tell he's ready because his stick is on the floor, or he's listening, or she's doing this. So you don't always have to call them the good kid, but you can say, I can tell because they're giving me the signal that they're ready. Just recognizing that
I think that
behavior.
I think that complements the PBIS model, the recognizing the positive behavior. And instead of calling out the kids that aren't doing stuff correctly, recognizing those that are, and then hopefully everybody kind of follows along.
Right. Yeah. Instead of nagging on the one kid that, I know it's Johnny's dragging his heels again.
Let's call that kid Stacy.
Yeah, let's do that. That'll work great. Oh. I don't see this done a ton in Fayette, but I know it works in the classroom. Some teachers will use it just occasionally. It's the lights on and off.
Yeah.
But you can do that, especially if you've got a wide open gym or some gym lights are hard to turn on and off and you wouldn't work at all. But it's just another simple thing that some people try, and it gets people's attention. What's going on? They start looking around, and that's when you can get their attention another way.
I was looking here, and it's kind of that responsive classroom. And this one, I see a lot of teachers do it too, where they do the clap once, and the kids respond. So I forget what we'll call it, the technical term is for that strategy, but I've just seen a number of them where they use their voice inflection too, where it's like class, 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 and then the students all have to respond in that same tone. And
Okay.
it's definitely, I see a lot in the classrooms.
Yeah. I think I called that copycat when I was doing some videos,
Okay.
that type of thing. I call it in my own gym. I call it a gym rhythm.
Yeah.
We're going to do a gym rhythm. So I do it and then you repeat. But yeah, you see it in classrooms and other PE classes. And sometimes it's the copycat. They do exactly what you do. And then we ran into some that they're kind of creative, where they were say the first half of a phrase and then the class would be trained to say the next half. Hocus pocus, for instance, and then the class yells, digital technology everybody teacher, focus. Whenever she needs their attention, she'll go bop, 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 bop. Another teacher yelled flat tire mouth, and then the whole class just puts their finger to their mouth and goes, so they finish it. Start loud and, kind of like another teacher that just says subway, that type of thing. And then the class responds with, I don't think you have to do all of these, but it's kind of like, it kind of could add some fun to your class depending on what age group you're working with.
Especially if you start incorporating stuff that's important to them, whether if it's the latest cartoon or the latest Pokemon, something Lego, something you can relate to their world. It would definitely add some excitement.
Yeah, I think so. How about ones that you just teach kind of at the beginning of the year and that's your thing? It's like writ rhymes or that type of thing. Isn't there like 1, 2, 3 eyes on me or stuff like that?
Yep, that's been a popular 1, 2, 3 eyes on me. Your typicals of give me 5, or your visual of counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So I think those are the go-to. I don't want to say one's more effective than the other, but just more universally used.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of success if it's something that complements something building wide. So like if you do it, if you do something in your class, a type of stop signal that's used in the music room, that's used in the lunchroom, that at the assembly, the principal stands up and whatever their signal might be, I think if it's universal, it's probably going to have more of an impact.
Yeah.
But I like the idea, even though it's universal, then all of a sudden you can add your own little flair to it with a Subway Eat Fresh.
Right. Yeah, and just maybe vary it up for a week or something.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just get kind of rote, and then now the teacher, instead of this being a fun thing, now it's just the teacher just expects it, and then it's kind of like the teacher nagging, and there's that piece too when we were talking about doing this podcast. We're looking at kind of you can have tones in your even in your 1, 2, 3 eyes on me can be 1, 2, 3 eyes on me, or 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
In your
kindergarten will pick up on that.
Yeah. So there's this whole piece of just put energy behind whatever you do, and you can sell a lot of things, and you can make the best thing totally ineffective by being grumpy behind it.
which is a great point to expand on, in that of all these strategies that we've seen, there isn't one perfect one.
Yep.
And what works for one person might not work for somebody else, and it's just you kind of find out what works in your toolbox.
Yeah.
And expand from there.
That kind of leads into, at the middle school and high school level, of the teachers I talked to at those levels, I found the whistle is used more and more. So several middle school or high school teachers would use a short blast of a whistle or a 3 blast. One tweet means one thing, 2 means another, 3 means another. They all have their different, like you said, they all seem effective. They all seem to know what, how to make it work. But I didn't hear as many elementary teachers using the whistles. It was kind of found that interesting.
Outside,
Okay.
I heard a whistle was just a way to carry sound, especially
Sure.
if kids were, on far ends of the field or whatever. Just that's like some signal other than having to use their voice to bring the kids in.
Yeah, that's more pleasant than hollering.
And saves on the person's voice too.
Yeah. No, I have a microphone I often bring out, so that helps a lot.
You know, we wanted to jump in here on this whistle discussion. Back a year ago when we recorded this, we were doing our best to estimate what numbers were and that type of thing, but we found it pretty intriguing. So we actually did some research and put out a survey, and we actually have some hard data for you regarding the whistle use of PE teachers today.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And right away, we recognize there's probably a difference between elementary and secondary on the use of a whistle for a stop signal. And we just saw through that survey, we found that actually only 15% of elementary fire ed teachers use a whistle on a regular basis.
And then like 50, wasn't it 48 or 50% of PE teachers in general don't even have a whistle. They don't use it ever. They found other ways to bring students in and talk to students when they need to get their attention.
Yeah, and I found two things come to mind with that. You know, number one, I do have a whistle on me. I use it maybe once or twice a year, and I use mine specifically for an emergency as a signal that the students have never heard before. That all of a sudden they hear this whistle, and that immediately captures their attention.
Sure.
But another great one when talking to people was how effective and actually how less stressful it is to use a whistle when you're outside, and you need that signal to carry over a long distance. And that's something we chatted about, that's when we collected our data, we actually never differentiated between outdoor versus indoor.
No, we just kind of put it out there as a quick type survey. Yeah, and I'm with you. Except for I think maybe technology has changed too. For me, my music's portable, so I can use music outside as a stop signal. When the music stops, they stop. I also have a microphone that goes with me. If I didn't have a microphone outside, I'd absolutely use a whistle or some type of, like you said, something that would project. Absolutely. But maybe the use of technology and the ease of us getting that equipment, maybe that changes the fact that people do or don't use whistles. Because, I mean, we didn't do this survey 50 years ago, obviously, but I bet the numbers would be different 50 years ago.
Yeah, very true.
With PE teachers compared to today. Yeah.
So in this next section, we're going to talk about Envoy. And Envoy it stands for Educational Nonverbal Yardsticks, which is a form of nonverbal classroom management to help develop your culture. And Envoy is based on 7 gems. And we're going to really talk about 2 of those gems, which is the above pause whisper and freeze body.
And I'm just going to take some time to promote people. Go out and do a little research on that. Read as much as you can if you ever get a chance to be trained in Envoy. I haven't been fully trained, but man, the one training I had, I grabbed a bunch of ideas from to help my classroom management in their simple tools, simple ways to keep your class more engaged. So with that promotion, take a listen to this next segment that we start talking about Envoy, and then we go into several other topics from there. Enjoy.
Envoy, just in that when you have that activity, you have to have something that gets above the noise to get their attention. And then by bringing your volume down, that would naturally bring down, it's that above pause whisper strategy. Yeah. Something you get above the student's noise, whatever activity they're doing, whether it's a microphone, a whistle blast,
clapping hands,
something to get above that noise, and then you just slowly bring your volume down, and that captures the student's attention.
Interesting.
3, 2, 1, freeze. All right, my friends, if you have a basket.
Yeah. Now, my first year teaching elementary, I found something soon into it that I didn't know what I was doing, and realized later it's kind of an Envoy deal where it's a whole rhyme where I will start out fairly loud and then just get softer and softer. I'm sure other teachers do something similar with, I call it the gym sit, and teaching them how to sit. And this is when they're really wound up, or a clap, you get their attention, but they're still fidgeting. I call it a gym sit, and I do a crisscross. We have hand movements that go with it. Crisscross applesauce.
Yeah.
Hands in our laps. And then if that doesn't do it, then I start whispering. And again, use the microphone. And I start whispering with the eyes are looking and then get it softer. Ears are listening, lips are locked, and then we do the hands in our lap. And usually by that, it takes 15 seconds or maybe like 10 to go through it. But that's when they're really wound up. I can really bring the energy out of them with that. I guess it's an envoy method. You start
Yeah.
loud and then bring them down with you. And usually they're pretty relaxed by the end of that. And I don't do that every time I need their attention. That would take too long.
Yeah.
But
But those
when I need-
times, and it is shocking how whispering can be an effective tool
Unbelievable.
in a large gym. Just a simple whisper, once you get that noise level down, to really capture their attention.
Yeah. Now, do you use a microphone in the gym?
I do.
Okay.
And that's my way of getting above the noise, is the closer you bring that microphone to the mouth. And
Yeah.
but then I try not to instruct or talk with that microphone up there, because then all of a
Right.
sudden you create a negative tone in the gym.
Yep.
So it's just that quick way to get their attention and then bring it back down to
Yeah.
a more calm tone.
Yeah, I had my student teacher use one for the first time today. I purposely had him go the first 2 weeks without it to practice, get his voice built up a little bit and project. But then today I had him try it. I said, try a couple different methods, and kind of like you just said, you don't teach with it, but to get their attention, or when you don't need complete silence, you just need to give a direction. Go ahead, use that. Get a little louder, get the next direction so they can hear you and move to the next thing. He really liked it. He really liked how it can.
I was
Oh,
never.
yeah.
It was one of those things I didn't think I would ever use.
Yeah.
And then once I got used to it, it's something I almost can't teach without now.
Mine broke, and it was miserable. It was exhausting teaching without it comparatively. It was amazing. The
It's like
difference.
somebody taking your phone away.
Yeah, in some ways. But yeah, I just found, because you had to project all day long then,
Mhm.
and I was tired. My voice was tired by the end of the day.
I think we found a number of strategies, and no one better than the other of how to stop the students. But what came out of it was just some broad things to consider as you're doing this. And one of them that popped up was that one or two students that aren't responding, and it's I'll wait. And how long are you going to wait? How long? Sometimes I can get pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'll wait. You're just wasting your game time. So I
Yeah,
thought
we've all said that as PTE
Yep,
teachers.
yep,
haven't we?
yep.
Hmm.
So I just wonder. I'll use it. I'm sure I use it this week.
Yeah.
You're wasting your game time, and you just wonder how effective is that?
Right. That's a good
Is
question.
that what kind of environment is that creating? And
Yeah, and you're not really trying to say right now that it's wrong or never use it. We're just
No.
asking the question of, is that, yeah, when do you use that? When do you use that line? Do you overuse it?
I think it's actually probably more effective in the kindergarten, first,
Yeah.
maybe second grade, and maybe as the kids get older, I think it becomes less effective.
I bet you're right.
At least for me, anyway.
Obviously we haven't studied it to know, but my gut says you're right on. The older kids, it seems like it works for the kids that are listening. They're like, yeah, but the ones that aren't hearing you. And so I think then it just kind of frustrates the kids that are already listening, and they're going, yeah, he's wasting our time. He's taking me off again, that type of a deal. Is there any times if you choose not to stop and get the whole group's attention, you just talk over them?
I would say a similar activity, similar short activity, like we were doing basketball ball handling drills. So, wrap around one leg, wrap around the other leg, wrap around both legs.
Okay.
And there's similar activities where I can just use that microphone and they can go over, or but if all of a sudden we're switching to a different type of activity, like I want to show you
Maybe the technique and how to shoot the basketball.
just something totally different, or a more complex ball handling drill for basketball. I would want to.
Okay.
I'd want their attention.
So something more than 3-4 words.
Yeah.
You're gonna wanna,
That's a good way to go to approach it.
No, I like that thought of it being the similar activity too, because then it's pretty easy to see if you're demonstrating too, they watch
Yeah.
you
Yep.
and, oh, now you're going around 2 knees instead of just 1 knee. Oh, okay. And they don't even have to understand what you said. If they just heard you say something and then they look at you, they can pick it up.
I've seen other teachers, and our music teacher especially, a calming technique that they use is the breathing technique. And I've never really had success with that one,
Okay.
but I see how great other teachers can utilize it.
Okay.
And I think it's just my approach.
Okay.
I guess maybe I'm not comfortable with it, and the kids pick up on it right away.
Okay.
Where I've seen our music teacher do it, and I've seen other Phi Ed teachers use it.
Yeah.
And I wish I had that same effect.
I just added it last year, and it was a conversation I was having with my wife about mindfulness, here's another thing they want us to add into Phi Ed is mindfulness. They want us to do yoga. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. But she said, well, how about just a little breathing technique as they're getting ready for the hallway? And I'm like, well, that's genius, and it's worked. I've found it really, really effective. Shout out to my wife with her experience with yoga gave this to me. The key to this is to start nice and loud as you count down from 3 and get softer and softer and softer by the time you hit 1, and then have them breathe out all that extra energy before you turn them loose to their teacher.
So what's your take on talking to the kids with stuff in their hands?
Trying to think of a good analogy of, banging your head against the wall, or I'm trying to think of something. Yeah.
Herding cats comes to mind.
Herding cats, whatever it is. And I know, and even to have them set it down next to them is hard. We've had to have them just set it down and take 2 steps back and then sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And even then they weasel their way back to it. Having something sit near them, it's really hard.
That's a big one I found with using the parachute. Is when again you talk about using examples where you just give directions on the fly, and some of that's with the parachute. And then when we're going to change the game reactivity, then we set the parachute on the floor.
Okay.
So we're not set it down at our toes, let the parachute go, take 2 big steps back and sit down and get them away from that parachute, and that to capture the attention, because if they're anywhere near it, and I think I'd be guilty of that too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you had your hands on it, would you be able to keep it still?
No. One of Newton's laws of holding a basketball as well.
For sure.
So an interesting one too, I think age appropriate.
Oh yeah.
Age appropriate. It's been a long time since I've been in a high school gym, and I wonder, like, turning the lights on and off, what kind of effect that would have on in a high school gym. When you turn those lights out, how many kids would duck out the back door?
Right. You'll be alone in no time.
You know what? So.
Or it might work, because that's what I saw it done in the classroom. Teachers would do it. Just a quick blink of the light. And so it might not be out of context there. That'd be interesting to know. Interesting to hear from some Phi Ed teachers in the breathing.
It would have been interesting to get more of a high school perspective on the stop signals, because everybody I talked to was in the elementary world.
Yeah, it was, a lot of them were just the tweets and the whistles, or just hollering the voice. Just, okay, bring it in. That type of a thing.
So, hey, speaking of bringing it in, when do you keep the kids spread out, and when do you bring them in?
Oh, great question. Great question. I think it kind of goes right in line with what we were talking about earlier with the when you talk over them type of a thing. If you're going to couple words, leave them out there. Maybe expand from 3-4 words to maybe no more than 3 sentences. If I'm going to do more than 3 sentences, bring them in. And that's not a hard rule. I'm just kind of throwing that out there, as if you're going to be 3-4 sentences, you might want to try to bring them in. Now, you might change that per class. One class, you just know, I'm not even going to try this. We're bringing them in. In another class, hey, this group can handle it. So, but I don't know. What kind of rule of thumb do you use?
I think your comment about class to class and differentiating between classes and just knowing the students, I think is probably the big, some classes you probably could give the most complex directions and they could be spread all across the gym.
Yeah.
Other classes, I don't know that you could get them close enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point on just knowing the class and the dynamics of the class. And because even when you bring them in, knowing the class of, okay, you two characters sit next to each other. This is going to be a problem right from the start.
Yep.
So the last one I got was waiting for every kid. And this is like the culmination of a stop signal. And you've got, we'll call that kid Stacy in the back there with the hula hoop.
Yep.
That will not scoot back from constantly moving that. And we have double classes at my school. So I've got 50 to 60 kids in the gym. And do you wait for every single one? And that's my ongoing struggle.
What's your natural tendency?
That's tough. With double classes, my cooperating teacher, if I'm instructing, she can go around and address those behaviors individually, in a private way. And same thing, when she's instructing, I can do that too.
That's the advantage to the double.
That's the advantage. When I just had signal classes, it was always a tough one. I think it was the younger it is, because it's kindergarten. I guess I justified it in kindergarten. I didn't necessarily wait for everybody.
Yep.
I waited for most, and it was like I was constantly building up to make it a little bit better when they were in first grade. And by the time they're in fourth and fifth grade, then we'll call it trained.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah. I think I'm just a little bit anal. I have a real hard time if people are even spinning. Then I make a noise. If I get one kid spinning, it just distracts me so much.
Yeah.
And then I find the second kid starts spinning, and then the third. And so I'm maybe a little tight and maybe waste some extra time, waste extra time, but it's.
Well, I'm glad you actually said that spinning thing, because that trigger, that's something that distracts me.
Yeah.
I same thing. It has nothing to do with the equipment. It's just spinning around.
And I sell it under the guise of in physical education, we're teaching you when to be crazy with your body, when to do flips with your body. We're going to climb walls with your body. And then there's going to be times where you're going to tell your body to be quiet and sit quietly. Now's that time. And it's not going to be for long, but we're going to tell our body to be quiet. And that's what I sell it, when I'm trying to teach it. But I could probably loosen up and still get by. It could be an area I could probably work on if I put more thought to it. I might decide that, stop being so anal, Nelson.
And all these, I think there's a big part of it too is the longer you talk, the more distracted you're going to become. Yep. So you want to maximize your activity time in FIAD classes anyway. Yeah. So one way to gain more activity time is lessen the directions. So the quicker you can make those directions, I think the less the problem is of the spinners and things like that are constantly out there.
Yeah, we had Jump for Heart today, introduction, and I ended up cutting 8 minutes off of my first go through. It was just, I got to the end, I was like, this is too long. Like you said, just not enough activity. So cut it in half. It was like 16 minutes long, and I cut her down to 8 and found that that's probably all they were listening to anyway. And so just cut down the directions, get to the point, and get them moving. I think you're right on there.
Hey, Stacey, I have to tell you, it was pretty fun to go back and listen to one of our first, actually probably the first recording we ever did as Thinking PE.
Yeah, it was actually not easy to listen to ourselves. You're kind of always more maybe critical of yourself, but you can tell we were early on, and not that we're super polished now, but you can tell. But on the other hand, I have to admit, there was some good ideas in there that I had forgotten about even since then, even though we made the whole discussion a year ago. I'm going to go back this week and add some of those ideas right back into my teaching again.
It's what I find interesting, and it's actually one of the last interviews we just did, episode 28 of the podcast, was with Dr. Christy Malley, the professor at Winona State University. And she talked about developing, how she teaches her future teachers, how she instructs them is building that solid foundation. And then by building that solid foundation, you're ready for You're ready for face-to-face learning. You're ready for distance learning. You're ready for hybrid. You know, and there I gave the example of when I was in the Marines, we called it brilliance in the basics. You know, basic skills that you had a foundational skill set. And where I'm taking this is something as simple as stop signals, and how it's thinking PE. It's really effective to go back and critically think about why you're doing things and how you're doing them, and what's best for kiddos.
No, absolutely. It is foundational. And that's kind of what lit our fire to start thinking PE, is finding things like that are basics. But man, you can talk about it for hours with good PE teachers, because there's some depth to the decisions you make on how you stop a class, when you stop them, when you don't. All of those things are foundational. And as a seasoned PE teacher, you're making those decisions on the fly, thousands of them all throughout your day. But like Dr. Malley talks about, if you're structured in those foundations, then you can take it all sorts of different directions, and we do.
Yeah, and so we've been distance learning, you know, last spring and even this year with hashtag 6 feet PE and COVID. And after listening to us, now I'm looking back, I'm thinking, why did I stop doing some of that stuff? Why you know? So it's good to look back at that and revisit it, and I really need to revisit my above pause whisper.
Yes. No, I think I'm hoping that this was a good resource for people that took the time to listen to it. It just, I mean, we covered a ton of ideas and material in there. But to kind of summarize this thing and kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it, I'm going to take us back to supportrealteachers.org, where they talked about the 5 foundational things that you should be looking for in a stop signal. And that is, number 1, make it interactive. 2, make it clear. Number 3, have it equipment free. Number 4, make sure it's repetitive. And number 5, don't forget the fun.
That is Thinking PE.
Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at Thinking PE. Find us on all your favorite podcast providers by searching Thinking PE. For more resources and videos, go to www.thinkingpe.com. Thanks for listening.